It's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First item will be roll call.
Brown,
Here.
Davis, Turkey,
Here.
Graves,
Here.
Now,
Here.
Walker.
Here. You'll say the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone can take a moment of silence if they like. Take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Everyone's had a chance to look over those previous meetings minutes. If there are no additions or corrections, they'll stand approved as presented. The visitors, we had faith meetings. And under public comment will be the Missouri Loggers presentation. Penny Thomas.
It's all yours, Penny.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. I never know, so I always have to verify that. I'm hoping I have access to share my screen, so I'm going to attempt to do that. We'll go here first. Okay. Are you looking at a page that says how Loggers works in the upper left-hand corner?
Yep.
Okay, very good. And I've talked to Jamie a little bit about what to discuss, and I'm going to try to keep it, high level and just, I don't want to waste your time at all, but I also want you to know everything that you need to know before making any choices regarding loggers. So I think the most important thing to know about loggers is how it works as far as a defined benefit versus a defined contribution plan. So as long as there is an understanding that it's not necessarily based on how much money you put towards loggers, how much money the employee, they don't have to pay anything if you so choose. It's all based on a formula. There's no account balance. It's just based on a formula. And that formula is on the screen and kind of in the center, on the upper part, there's a blue rectangle. And you'll see there is our formula. It's benefit program times credited service times final average salary equals monthly lifetime benefit. So the benefit program is something that an employer gets to choose. And that's what we call anywhere from the L1 to the L6 program, or if you want to refer to benefit program as a benefit multiplier, because what it all equals is a number. And that number is anywhere from 1% to 2%. So that'll be the first part of the formula. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. So we would have the benefit multiplier, 1% to 2%, times how many years of credited service an individual has in loggers. So it could be, let's say 1.5% times 25 years that they had in loggers, times a final average monthly salary. Those three things multiplied together will give us an idea of how much they will receive every month for the rest of their life. There's no outliving your benefit. And that, again, is unlike a defined contribution plan where you have an account balance and you could potentially use it all and bottom out if you're fortunate enough to live long enough to do that. But with loggers, it is a defined benefit, a monthly lifetime benefit that you can depend upon. We always think of loggers as part of a three-legged stool whenever it comes to retirement security. And the three legs being loggers as one leg, Social Security as another leg, and your own savings as a third leg. If any one of those legs were removed, it's not as stable. So we think that those three things combined is going to give somebody a sense of retirement security and feel that that security whenever they retire. Now, as far as what choices you have to make as far as trying to purchase this benefit for your employees, there are a few things to consider. And I'm going to try to go to this next page. Employer options. Okay. There is a set of one-time options that the employer, you guys, will have to decide when coming to loggers. The first one is the most important one. It's the election to actually provide coverage for your employees. Now, what is so important about that is that we have no exit provision in state statute. So once you decide to go ahead and begin becoming a loggers member, then that is forever, unless you cease to exist as a political entity or if you cease to have any eligible employees to cover. So that is a huge, huge commitment. And we encourage you to think about it very strongly before making any decision, knowing that there's not an exit provision. We also encourage you to speak with other entities that have loggers and see if this has been a problem in the past, the no exit provision. Talk to them about the expense. Talk to them about how the ease of which to do the monthly reports that we need to get for salaries. We always encourage you to talk to others. And if you ever need to see who else has loggers in your area, you can always go to our website, which is mologgers.org. And under that, I believe it's under employers. It says something about employer members, a list of employer members. So you can actually get a list, and there's a search column to where you can search Pettis County, and you'll see all loggers entities that are within Pettis County. So you could search Cole County, and you get everything that's under Cole County. So we do encourage you to see, what kind of levels do they have? What does their plan look like? How many? It even tells you how many people are covered in that employer if you go to look that up. So that's the first and biggest choice that you would have to make, is the election to provide coverage. Another one would be annual hours for coverage. You get to determine who's actually going to be eligible to receive loggers benefits or enroll in loggers as far as your employees are concerned. You can choose either 1,000 annual hours, 1,250, or 1,500 annual hours. And any employee that you have that works that number of hours or more has to be covered under loggers. So if you were wanting to mainly just cover the 40-hour full-time individuals, you would probably choose the 1,500. If you're wanting to maybe cover some of your part-timers, you would go lower to about 1,000 hours. Okay, so that's where that fits in. Another one-time choice is prior service coverage, and this one is important to note that the actuarial report that you have in front of you, that is based on if we assumed that you're going to pick up 100% of all of your employees' time they already have had in your facility and under your employment. Okay. However, if you read on here, you can choose to cover only 75% 50% or 25%. And I did run some numbers for Jamie, I believe. She has some different figures for you in regards to this, but we will look at the 100% coverage first. But you get to choose whether you want to cover all of their prior service that they've had, or 75%, 50%, or 25%. Now, if you do go less than 100%, whatever you as the employer, what you don't cover, the employee as an individual can purchase that time themselves, but it would be done on an individual basis. Okay, so it's not like they can't get it covered, but it's just that you would not be paying for all of it if you go that route. And the fourth and final one-time election would be the departments covered. And if I'm correct, I think we chose to do the general and the public safety. Is that correct? In which I think that's what we have on our
Yes.
actuarial valuation. So those departments, you can never remove those departments. Now, I don't think you would ever have a reason to add any other departments, but the only other departments that you could add would be fire or police. So I'm thinking the general will cover anybody who is not certified as public safety. Okay. So those are the one-time elections, the ones that you can't change once you choose. Now, any other election that I talk about from here on can be changed every 2 years if you wish to do so. So the first one we're going to talk about is the benefit program, the benefit multiplier, that first part of the formula to figure benefit monthly benefits. If you look at the chart that's green and white striped, you're going to see an L1, L3, L7, L12, L6, and L11. First of all, I'll point out with the L11, that is only for employers that do not pay into Social Security. If you pay into Social Security, then you're not allowed to get the L11 program. Okay, but if you see each one of those L programs, life programs, is equal to a multiplier. Okay, and again, that multiplier anywhere from 1% to 2%, and we go in increments of 0.25%. Okay, so if you went with the L1, that would be a 1% multiplier. Now, to give you an idea of what that would mean for your employees, what that would provide for them, they would take 1% times how many years of credited service they have at loggers when they retire. And that's what they would have as a percentage of replacement of income. For example, if you look at the chart, if they 10 years and then retire, at the 1% multiplier, 1 times 10 is 10. So 10% of their pre-retirement income is what they would receive every month for life for working 10 years. They worked 30 years, 1% times 30 is 30%. So they would have 30% of their pre-retirement income coming to them every month. Okay. You'll notice that all the way up at the L6 program, that doubles. You know, of course, anytime the percentage goes higher, it's going to dramatically increase how much the person will receive. Okay. Now, I never suggest going straight to an L6 if you're starting out. That is very costly, very costly. Some people are able to do it just depending on if they're a new entity, if they come into a lot of money, if they know they're going to have a lot of money for a long time. But the way that most people, most employers do this is they'll start with a lower multiplier, like a 1% or the 1.25, as long as they can get on loggers. And then as they go along, they can gradually increase that to the L7 or the L12. Now, because again, this is something that you can change every 2 years. If they do that, it covers all of their prior service that had already been covered. Okay. So if they had 5 years in at the 1% and you go up to the 1.25, that 5 years plus whatever they work in the future will be at the 1.25%, will be figured at that. Okay, so that's going to be one of your big decisions, is determine which multiplier or which program level you want to go with. Another choice that you'll have at the bottom left-hand side of the page is the final average salary. Employers can choose either a 3-year final average salary or a 5-year. Most people believe that this is just the last 3 or 5 years of a person's work. But what we do is we go back actually 120 months or 10 years of the employee's logger's time, credited service. And within that 10 years, we're going to find the highest consecutive 36 months or highest consecutive 60 months. And that's what we're going to use to find the average monthly salary. Okay. So again, final average salary is that second part or one of the parts of the formula. So you have your benefit program, you have your final average salary. And then of course, the pay itself would be dependent on what their current salary is and if they get any increases, okay, in salary. Another election that you can choose and can be changed every 2 years if you wish to do so is the election for eligibility age. With the public safety, we have the opportunity to provide an age 55 retirement for normal retirement age for public safety. General is age 60, okay? So for general department, once they reach age 60 and they've already been vested, have 5 years in loggers, whether that is part of their prior service or only service up to this point, 5 years is what they will need. And even if they were working at a previous loggers, if they already have like 2 years there and they moved over to your employer, then they would just need 3 more years to be vested, okay? So as long as they're vested, then this is the age they can start drawing full benefits. All right. So general age 60 and public safety age 55. There's also a choice of the rule of 80. Now the rule of 80 is your age plus the number of years of credited service. Once that equals 80, you can retire with full benefits. We don't have a lot of employers that are moving to the rule of 80. Because they're finding that the majority of their employees are going to go ahead and work until 60 and sometimes even 65. And that's mainly due to insurance purposes. So, yes, it's good for those who want to retire early and have the benefit of doing so, but it may not help everybody. If you start working after the age of 35, if you're public safety, then the rule of 80 probably won't benefit you very much. If you start young, it could. So those are just, and if you have questions about that, I can answer that. But those are the 2 elections you have for eligibility, normal retirement or rule of 80. Now, funding the election, this is where when we start looking at the actuarial valuation, you're going to see some pretty lofty figures. If those figures seem just totally unreachable to you, you can always think about, well, what if we have the employees contribute a certain percentage of their own salary to assist us in paying for this benefit? You can have them either go 0% to where you're paying for everything, 2% of their salary, 4%, or 6%. And it would be up to the board which you would do, but everybody would have to be have that same percent that they would be putting in. It would just be part of their employment. Okay, they'll be okay. You have loggers, but you have to pay in 4%. We take over the rest. So those are the options. And if you don't have one of these booklets, I can definitely send it to Jamie because it has on the last page this subdivision worksheet, where as you guys are discussing it, you can kind of go through and make your choices as you will on this page. So I'll definitely make that available to you. But those are the different options you have. But now I want to take a look at the cost because that's what we're really wanting to know tonight. So I am going to attempt to share my screen again here. Different screen. Okay, now you should see page 4 of actuarial valuation. Is that correct? Oops. Yes, there we go. The reason why I have it on page 4 is this is the first page where it starts giving you a plethora of numbers that seem to not make any sense unless you know a little bit about loggers. So I'm going to attempt to have this make sense for you guys, okay? If you look at this chart, right above the chart, you're going to see that this chart is for if you were to choose the 5-year final average salary and regular retirement eligibility. If you looked at the next page, up at the top above the chart, it would be the 3-year final average salary with regular retirement eligibility. And then with the rule of 8, with the 5-year and the 3-year. So that's the difference between these 3 charts. But we'll start with the first one to kind of understand this one. And again, this is the 5-year final average salary, regular retirement eligibility. If you looked at that L1, this first column, L1 benefit level, and if you remember, that's a 1% multiplier, okay? How much would it cost for you guys to get in at the 1% multiplier? First, we're going to look at the general department, and then we will look at the public safety department, okay? With the general department and with the public safety, there are 3 percentages that are added together to give you a total employer contribution rate, or in other words, cost, okay? And this is the cost, the percentage of payroll that it would cost, okay? So if you look, we have normal cost rate for general is 7% for the L1. That means from the effective date moving forward, just that 7% is what that would cost. 7% of payroll. The casualty rate, that covers any of the duty disability survivor benefits. I'm so sorry. I thought I had that on. There you go. That's for disability and survivor benefits. And every employer that's the same for every employer, depending on what program level they choose. The third column is the prior service cost rate. This is where we talk about if you want to pick up 100% of your employees' prior service, this is the cost. 2.8% of your total contribution rate. Okay, if you wanted to reduce that to just paying for 50% of their previous or prior service, that would go down to about 1.4%. Okay, to where it wouldn't be as expensive. But if you take 7%, 0.2%, and 2.8%, you're going to get 10%, which is in the first column. That would be if you were to pick up 100% of their prior service and you pay for everything, it would cost you for the general department 10% of payroll, and you would pay monthly on that. So monthly payroll would be 10% of monthly payroll. If you had the employees go in 2% of their own salary, then that would go down for you to 8.1%. If you have them go in at 4%, you would have 6.2% as your part. And if you have them go in 6%, your part would only be 4.3% of payroll. Now, the same thing can be done with public safety. Instead of the normal cost rate being 7%, it's 7.5 because we have quite a few more public safety personnel, and their retirement age is a little younger. So this is going to cost just a little bit more for the public safety. Casualty rate is still 0.2. Their prior service cost rate is 3.4, okay, which gives you a total of 11.1%. That would be the total cost. So let's say you wanted to go up a level, you want to go up to 1.5, which is just kind of in the middle of 1 and 2, of course, but 1.5% is the L7. So if you drop down that first column, look at the L7, the total cost, if you paid for everything and picked up 100% of prior service, would be 14.6% of payroll for general and 16.2% for public safety. Okay. Are there questions on that or how to read that, or does that make more sense now? I'm hoping.
Hey, is there any way you can zoom in on that? It's really tiny on our end.
It's tiny. Okay, let me see what I can do here. Well, that made my page bigger, but let me see if I can increase. Where's the view?
Right there in the middle, top of the page. There you go.
Thank you. Is that better? Getting better?
Yep.
Okay. Gives you. Okay, so again, those costs would be based on the 5-year final average salary, regular retirement eligibility. If you wanted to go to the 3-year final average salary, this would be the cost. Changes just a little bit, just a little bit more. Okay. And then going to the rule of 80. Not a big change. I don't know if there would be many employees who would benefit from it. But that would be the cost for the rule of 80 and the 5-year, the rule of 80 and the 3-year. Now, one thing that I wanted to look, and I don't want to make anybody dizzy, so you might close your eyes while I scroll down here. This isn't horrible, but on this page, this is page 8. And this is based on regular retirement eligibility, based on the information we received in the personnel data form about payroll. How many people you have on payroll and the amount, the total amount that is paid for both general and public safety. We can look here on page 8, and this is for general only, regular retirement eligibility. We can look under regular retirement eligibility, 5-year final average salary, which is again from page 4. We had said that it was going to cost about 10% for general. So for an L1 program, and that's if you paid for everything and the employees didn't pay anything. So that equates to $28,693 a year. So if you wanted to look at cost instead of just percentages, this is the page you would look at. The next one would be the next box over to the right would be regular retirement eligibility with a 3-year final average salary. Then the 2 boxes below would be with the rule of 80. 5-year final average salary on the left, 3-year final average salary on the right. Okay. Now this is public safety. So because we have so many more public safety individuals, you're going to see the cost. Even though the percentage is not that much more, the cost is greater because the payroll is greater. The cost for the 1% program, if you paid for everything, is $376,873 a year. Okay. Now, one thing that we should look at here is this page. This page is what we consider the unfunded liability. And this amount that's on this page is not something that you have to pay for in advance to be part of loggers. It is the prior service cost. Okay, it is the prior service cost. So if we go back to page 4 and those 3 white columns, we have normal cost, we have disability and survivor benefit cost, and then we have prior service cost. That's based on 100% of their prior service. So this amount would actually go down if you decided to choose either 75%, 50%, or 25% of their prior service, if that's what you wanted to cover, instead of covering all of it. But regardless, it's not something you have to pay up front, but there is going to be that prior service percentage that's always going to be part of your full contribution rate that you have to pay. Okay. And this is based on your amortized rate. For any new entity that onboards, their unfunded liability is based on a 30-year amortized rate. And the amortized rate is kind of like a reversed amortization, where it looks like the liability grows at first, but then it drastically goes down after a while. So that's something to think about too, and not get scared about if you see it. That's just the amortization working. So let's see, this is for if you go with the rule of 80, the cost for the unfunded liability. And again, this is not something that you have to pay up front. If you want to pay this up front, that's totally doable, and it will reduce your overall contribution rate if you do so. It will reduce it by whatever that prior service percentage was if you pay the full amount. So that's something that you can do, and you can pay it in chunks if you wish to do so, if you want to try to reduce that percentage over time. Okay, now I'm going to scroll again. It's going to get crazy. There's another. Okay. I want to look real quick at this page. This is kind of like on the employee side. We've talked a lot about the employer side and the cost. Now, what is it that the employee can anticipate? And we have a few examples on here. Service plus salary examples. This page is based on the L7 benefit program, which is a 1.5. So it's kind of in the middle. At the 1.5% level, let's say we have somebody that has worked 25 years, has 25 years of credited service in, and they're averaging about $3,500 a month, $3,500. So we've dropped under 25 years of service at $3,500. That first column over is the logger's benefit. If they work 25 years and their final average salary is around $3,500, they will receive $1,313 every month for life. The next column is the anticipated Social Security that they would receive once they reach full Social Security age, which is $1,567. They pay about 40% right now for Social Security. So combined, it would be $2,880, which would be about 82% of the employee's pre-retirement income. All of the experts out there say that retirees need to have somewhere between 70 and 95% of their pre-retirement income set aside in retirement to maintain the same lifestyle they have. That's all dependent, on how much debt they still have whenever they do retire. So that's something to keep in mind. But what's also important to keep in mind too, we talked about Social Security being a big chunk of this. It still is, and it still will be. Now things may change a little bit between now and when somebody retires. It may look a little bit different, but I think we still will have Social Security to be part of our retirement security. But right now, you have to be about 67 and a half in order to start receiving full Social Security benefits. So if you're 60 when you retire, that's about 7 years that you have to fill in that gap with personal savings. So that's always something to think about. But you can always guarantee if you're going to be guaranteed that you'll have the loggers 1,300. So that's a big chunk of it that you already have taken care of. Okay, so that's just a brief glimpse into what loggers can provide as far as stability in retirement. Right here, this is general. I want to drop down to public safety because this tells me a lot. This is what was reported to us about the ages, the number of years of service, annual pay, the averages there for your public safety personnel. And what it's showing me here is that, let's see, we have 8, 9, 10, about 1/5 of the people that are getting close to retirement, and that's not bad. And I love seeing that the average age is 38.6 years. That tells me you have a rather young group of employees, which is always good when you're starting out with loggers. Now, the benefit service, 5.2 years. I know, I'm not sure how long you've been in business, but I know that 5.2 years is not a whole lot of time that you would have to cover. and that's a good prior service rate as well. And annual pay is the annual pay average of 66 is right on par. So when I look at that, there's nothing there that scares me. Sometimes when I look at these and I see ages where the average age is over 50 and the benefit service is like 20 years on the average, that scares me, because that tells me it's going to be a high cost for them. And if anybody were to retire really quickly, it could increase their contribution rate fairly quickly. We do have a cap of a 1% a year if it does have to go up, but every end of February, we reevaluate every department that is under loggers. And we say, okay, these were all of the assumptions. What actually happened? Do we have what we assumed number of retirees? Did that happen? Did we have turnover like we thought we would happen? All of those things. Those are all the assumptions that are in that 70 some odd page document that makes the actuarial evaluation. So if you want to see what assumptions we look at, it is in there. We have a 7% assumed rate of return, and we are long-term investors. And by that, we are doing very well. Our 10, 15, 20 is well over the 7%. So I don't see any issues with that. But I'll say that loggers were set up in a way that our whole plan is set up so employers have this contribution rate, and that contribution rate remains steady. It doesn't keep going up and up and up and up and up and up and up to where it's just ridiculous and you can't ever pay it off. We do everything we can with our assumptions to make sure that that contribution rate remains steady. Okay. Let's see, questions at this point. I threw a lot at you.
The service in years, is that always a whole number? Do you round down or do you take percentages of years?
That's a fantastic question. Whenever we do any estimates that we need a quick number, if they have more than 6 months, we'll round it to the next year. However, when they retire, we actually figure out how many months of service credit they have. So every month that you work, like let's say you guys chose the 1,500 annual hours. If you did so, every 15th of the month, your employees would get another service credit. And that would go towards increasing the amount they'll receive in retirement. So it's not like a January through December. It is month by month whenever we get down to really calculating spot on how much they'll get.
For the purposes of retirement, does accrued leave time and vacation count? Do you add it on at the end?
Another great question. If you have set up a way that you buy back some of that time, like every couple of years or whatever it might be, if it's something that you do on occasion, then that can be part of your final average salary that's used in the calculation. Otherwise, if it's done as a one-time lump check at the end, that is not included in the final average salary.
Okay, so that, we've done my calculations, I'm getting my $1,341 a month for life. And I live another 20 years. On the 20th year, am I still getting a check for $1,341? Is there any COLA provision?
I love you guys. You are answering or asking great questions. Yes, there is a COLA. We pay our COLAs on the 1st of October every year. We are not state mandated to do so. Our board has to elect to do that every year. We have never not done that, and I don't think it's ever going to change. We will. Now, we do have a 4% cap every year, but it's cumulative. So if the CPIU is above 4% on any given year, the overage is then tacked on to the next year. And if it's over again, it's tacked on to the next year. So right now we're behind because in the last few years, the CPI has been crazy. So we're going to be playing catch up for some people, it's going to be about 4 years worth of catch up before they get back to 100% purchase power. But yes, we are dedicated to make sure that our retirees have that 100% purchase power. They feel just as secure the moment they retire as to when they're 80, 90 years old.
Do the COLAs directly affect the actuarial table in the short term or only in the long term?
Now, whenever you say actuarial table, like overall status of loggers or?
In a period of extended inflation, is that going to affect your ability to pay COLAs in the future because your investments are, you're overspending, you're putting more out than you're bringing in, or you got?
Yeah, we've actually done a study on this. It was actually a 50-year study because once inflation started going skyrocketing, we started, what is this going to do? What if it doesn't end for a long time? Right now, we're around 95% pre-funded. So if everybody had to be paid tomorrow, we're talking deferred, inactive, whatever it might be. If everybody had to be paid out from loggers tomorrow, they'd get 95 cents on the dollar. So if we continue to have this rise in inflation, I think after 20 years, I think our funding percent would go down. I think they said somewhere in the 70% range, which still is not bad. So the way things are going with all of this that has been happening, we're still in the 90s. So I feel pretty confident that the way that we are structured, even if we remain consistent with our COLAs the way that we do, that we're not going to be in any situation to where we're not going to be able to pay our people what they are due to them.
Thank you.
Can you come to all of my meetings and ask those questions, please? Those are.
No, you're welcome to work it into your presentation.
I'll do it. I'll work it in. One of the things that you do decide to go forward, like what's the next step? What's the next step? Basically, the next step is to make sure that this valuation right here is publicly accessible for 45 days. If you haven't already started, okay? Usually you work it into the meeting minutes to say, hey, this is out there for anybody to view if you want to see it. And then you put where they would have to go to find it. But that has to happen for 45 days before you can actually vote on it. Then once you do vote on it, we give you some sample resolution verbiage that you can use that incorporates all of those elections to make sure that you went over each election, that you know exactly what your program wants to look like. And then once you sign off on that and vote, that would have to come back to us within 10 business days. So that's just kind of the process if you do wish to go forward. I'm not pushing you by any means. This valuation is good for a couple of years. So you're just fine to wait a bit on it if you wish to do so. And It's up to you what your effective date will be. It can't be too far removed from when you actually signed the resolution. I think it's a year after you signed the resolution. But you can put the effective date, like even if you voted on it right now, you can put the effective date as January 1st of 2024, or even June 1st of 2024 would work. And some people do that just to mesh with their fiscal years. Okay. Jamie, are you there? Did I forget anything?
Oh, I think you did. Good. Covered everything way faster than we did the first time.
Any other questions or concerns? If you have any questions after this, have Jamie contact me, or you can contact me. My email is pthomas@mologgers.org. P. Thomas, as in Penny Thomas. Now, Jamie, I don't know if you've shown them the other figures that I ran for you, but she does have a few sets of figures on certain program levels, and if you were to go with the full 100% of prior service, what the cost would look like then.
Yeah, I haven't yet. I have them here so we can do some calculations.
Okay, perfect.
Any other questions? Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I hope to hear from you soon.
Move on to the officer's report, the CFO report.
My report shows on page 3. This is, I hope, our final provider relief fund report that we have to do. We received $314,118.91 back in February of 22. That's the last provider relief fund. I can't speak. Provider relief fund distribution that we received. It was actually phase 4, but this is phase 5 reporting. So you can see that on page 4, kind of in the middle, it shows you total other provider relief fund payments January 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2022. That's that dollar amount we received. And then a lot of this report is all of the reports that you've seen previously. The differences are at the bottom of page 5. I used $314,118.91 of the equipment we purchased back in fourth quarter of 2020 against that $314,000 we received. And then we still had on page 6 at the very top there, it's $312,000 is the unreimbursed expenses. So that's the amount of equipment we purchased that we didn't get reimbursed for. The rest of page 6 is all the previous year's revenue. So 2019's revenue, and that's what every other year is compared to figure out our lost revenues. So if you look at page 7, kind of the second little section there is lost revenue summary, period of availability. It gives you by quarter our lost revenues for every quarter of 2020, 21, 22, and 23 up until June. Because that was when the period of availability ended. And then down at the bottom of that page is the summary of that. So our lost revenues for the period of availability was $373,080.58. We used $167,323.42 reimbursement, the provider relief fund payments against that lost revenue. So we still had $205,757.18, that's really small, 16 cents of total unused lost revenues. So even with all of the provider relief funds payments that we received, we still expended $205,000 of lost revenue plus $312,000 of equipment for that period for COVID-related expenses. So that is basically what we're telling the government. that we get to keep our money, because we lost more money than you guys paid us, basically. So,
We lost all that money while building another $1 million in our cash reserves.
well, yes, but that money is spoken for ambulances. Yes, but no.
Because we chose to spend it on ambulances. And
Yes,
not-
but no.
Okay, I'm with you. Okay.
So I just wanted you guys to see that before I submitted it. It's due, the end of the month, so I'll submit that tomorrow, as long as you guys are okay with that. I don't think it needs a vote or anything, I just wanted you guys to see it first. Page 10 is our budget performance up until June. I'm slowly but surely catching everything back up, so you guys haven't seen financials for a few months, so they'll be really old, but this is halfway through the year, is where this timeframe is telling you. So page 10 is our year-to-date budget performance summary. So our total operating revenue is 105% of our budgeted revenue, so that's good. And our expenses are 64%, so revenue's up, expenses are down. And that is for the year-to-date budget. Any questions on any of that? Pages 11 through 14 are the budget performance details. So we should be at 50% our budget at this point. So revenue, again, you can see that's over, we're at 61.88% of our budget at the end of June. And then I've highlighted some different expenses that were over 50%. Medical waste, oxygen, both are over 50% for that period. Employee life and injury is slightly over that, but as a whole, total payroll expenses are 48.58%. I did want to kind of point out that that is at our budgeted amount, and you guys approved raises after the budget, so this is actually looking very good compared to, but we haven't done a budget amendment to adjust for that. I did want to point out, just we're looking at all those percentages of payroll for the retirement, that if you look at what we have budgeted for retirement, it's about 3% of payroll, just to keep in mind the differences between what the loggers were and where we're at now. We actually contribute 4%, match up to 4%, but due to employees not contributing, it's about 3% average of what we contribute. So it has been increasing, but 3% still been the average. Any questions on pages 11 and 12? 13 and 14, now the same. Computer repair and equipment is over budget at this point. Shredding service, that we did a big shred of all of our old billing records, which was $879 of that, so we're still looking pretty good if we just look at what we budgeted for. Even the ones that are over budget, when you look at the dollar amount over budget, it's not that much. Patient billing expense looks a little quirky, but that is because we brought it in-house and I didn't budget for a full year. I only budgeted for about 3/4 of the year, so we should be getting closer to the 5% on that patient billing expense. Training is one that is above the 50% as well. Big questions on that. Pages 15 and 16, that is just our capital expenses, what was budgeted and what we spent year to date. So we have a lot of things still on here. A lot of these we know now that aren't going to happen this year probably, but some of these will still be happening. So kind of just keep in mind what we've got out there that we've said we're going to spend this year. I also did add at the bottom there, unit 12 engine and unit 7 new motor. Those two items are capital expenses that we're not budgeted for. Any questions on that? Page 17 is our balance sheet, previous year comparison, just kind of shows you overall year over year where we're at. Any questions on that? Page 18 is our profit and loss previous year comparison. Again, you can see our revenue is up year over year and our expenses are also up year over year. But overall, we are still ahead of last year. Page 19 is our profit and loss by class, where we break out Windsor. Revenue is actual revenue, and then expenses are actual when they can be. The rest of them are allocated based on payroll. And then the bottom portion where we break out the Pettis calls that were ran from Windsor, those numbers are on page 20.
I noticed on page 20 that since 2018 through 2022, the Windsor service fees have started kind of a downward progression, but the Windsor expenses are definitely up. Am I reading that right?
So
What constitutes service fees?
the service fees are what we receive for
Income,
service.
yes.
Yeah.
So our income is less than the last 4 years than it was in 2018.
Yeah.
And
some
our
of that
expense
is
is the highest it's ever been now. And the employee costs are modestly up. Okay. I still keep getting questions about the Windsor thing. That's all.
yeah. Any other questions on that? Okay, page 21 is our sales tax receipts year to date. We are, our year over year difference keeps decreasing. So we're down to 2.75% increase over last year, $76,497 more than last year still is what we received. So October, we should see the receipts for when the state fair was here. So we'll see what that kind of look like. It takes a couple months to get those sales tax receipts in. Page 22 is our bank balances as of the 21st. The top half is month over month, same period. It's up 136,000, and then year over year, 1.7 million on our cash. Page 23 is just the chart that shows the same thing. Page 24 is cash reserve analysis. Our months in cash reserve went up about a week since last month, same time. Pages 25 through 30 is the check register. We're still hopeful that the bank's gonna get things fixed, so it goes back to looking like we're used to seeing the payers' names. So, any questions on it? There's a lot of transactions there. Page 31 is the current bills due, and then the details are pages 32 and 32. Any questions on any of those bills?
Any other questions for Jamie? If not, I'll take a motion to receive the CFO. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Take a motion to approve payment of outstanding bills.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Move on to unfinished business, employee job descriptions, chief financial officer.
They asked me to add some wording regarding the billing. I tried to keep it not real specific. this is job security for me if I made it specific, but I don't think you'd ever be able to replace me if we made it specific to everything that I have as far as certifications and things like that, so. Is there anything else that you guys would like added there? The red is what we added.
Yeah, it looks more complete to me.
And we don't need to vote on this, just to review or do we?
If we're gonna update the handbook, I think you guys do need to vote on that.
We tabled it last time.
Have a motion to approve CFO report.
I'll make that motion.
Second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Battalion chief.
Again, these were edits we've talked about putting in there and bringing back to the board for approval. Nothing new we changed. We did add that preferred, other than making it all under required for battalion chief. That's all those are updated. Yeah, that's it on battalion chief.
Move we approve it.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. And the captain.
Captain, second verse, same as the first. We added that 5 years in EMS up that originally because of the years of PCAD's existence. And then 2 years of employment of PCAD rather than 2 years as a paramedic. And there is a date on the page, on page 40. It says reviewed and revised. We didn't catch that, but we can certainly, if you want to approve with that, then we'll update that change. It's just on the signature page. That's it.
Yeah, it appears on the page 39 has the right date.
Correct.
Okay. Well, with that correction, I would move to accept this one.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. New business, I'll take a motion to go into closed session pursuant to RSMO 610.021, sections 1, 2, 3, and 13.
So move.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor, and that'll be roll call.
Brown,
Yes.
Turkey,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Nail.
Yep.
Walker.